Combat Initiation has no shortage of ranged weapons, but when it comes to flexibility in a loadout, few compare to the Slingshot. On its own, it looks simple, almost unimpressive. But don't be fooled. The moment you start experimenting with it and its upgrades, the Slingshot becomes one of the most dangerous weapons you can carry. And it's today's topic on the channel. Today, we're breaking down everything you need to know about Combat Initiation's Slingshot branch, from its base mechanics to its upgrades, to everything you want to look out for when making a Slingshot build. Yes, I know that the Doomspire guide was wanted more by you guys, but that project is going to take a while, so we're covering something else in the meantime. Don't worry, I'm still working on it. Let's get into the video. Before we get into its upgrades, we need to break down what makes the base Slingshot one of the most commonly picked starter weapons in Combat Initiation. Let's take a look at its base stats. Using the Slingshot, we'll fire a pellet from it. A Slingshot pellet deals 39 damage on a body shot and 78 on a headshot. Getting a headshot kill with the weapon will award the player with the headshot style bonus, which gives the player 45 more style points than the usual kill style bonus. This attack also has some lifesteal capabilities to it, as you'll heal 2 HP on a body shot and 4 on a headshot. Additionally, landing a hit with the Slingshot will remove 2 seconds off its alt fire charge cooldown. After firing, the Slingshot will go on a 0.15 second cooldown. Because of this extremely short delay between shots, you can really just hold down the mouse button to rapid fire it. Although, let's be honest, if you've had any amount of experience in the game, you know this weapon is used way more for its alt fire. Using its alt fire will instead have you lob a pellet in the air, and remove a charge from the weapon's alt fire charges. Thrown pellets have 2 states: active, where they have a yellow trail following it, and inactive, where they don't. Thrown pellets will start out active, however once they hit the ground, they'll become inactive. By default, you'll have 6 alt fire charges at most, and a missing alt fire charge will regenerate after 8 seconds, less if you land hits with the primary fire of the Slingshot, of course. However, what are these tossed pellets good for? Well, normally I would save this for the weapon synergy section. However, since these 2 weapon interactions are integral for the Slingshot's alt fire, it's going at the start, and we'll go over the more advanced tech using it near the end: Slash of Ticks and Ricoshot. Slash of Ticks is the main reason why so many people start off a game of Combat Initiation with the sword Slingshot combo. Hitting an active thrown pellet with a sword will redirect it to the nearest enemy, dealing 205 damage and awarding the player with the Slash of Ticks style bonus. Interacting with thrown pellets in this way won't immediately make said pellet inactive, however. It'll bounce off the enemy after dealing damage, and if you're quick, you can chain Slash of Ticks together, with each subsequent hit adding another 205 damage to the pellet, up to 3 times at a max of 820 damage. There's 3 common techniques to reliably pull a Slash of Ticks off. First off, you can fling a pellet in the air and wait for it to fall back to you, then slashing it with your sword. Second, you can jump with the pellet and slash it while the pellet's still going up. Third, you can forget about switching to your sword entirely and use the sword shortcut fire while you still have your Slingshot equipped, hitting the pellet that way. Personally, I go with the second option because if you can pull the series of inputs off fast enough, you can throw 2 pellets instead and hit the second one on the way down. And the inputs are basically muscle memory with me now. Although, I recommend you do what you find to be more comfortable. If you're not sure, Sandbox is a great resource for getting the timing down for whichever one you think you can do without any pressure. Ricoshot, on the other hand, sacrifices an easier setup for better scaling. Instead of using a sword to simply slash a pellet, a Ricoshot will instead require you to use a weapon from the paintball branch to shoot the active pellet with. This will redirect the shot to the nearest enemy, dealing 205 damage and awarding the player with the Ricoshot style bonus. Although I might as well note that interacting with pellets this way will entirely get rid of the pellet, unlike Slash of Ticks. While this is obviously going to be harder to pull off, its scaling is much better compared to Slash of Ticks. You're able to chain active pellets together, and doing so will add 250 extra damage to the shot, up to 5 extra coins at a max of 1,455 damage. I rarely mess with Ricoshots, but if you're really good at tracking a small pellet on the screen, then give it a shot. When you take all of this into consideration, the Slingshot becomes one of the most reliable ways to dish out damage. You have its main fire and the lifesteal capabilities that come with it. That's a given. But when you add its alt fire into the mix, it becomes one of the best weapons in the early stages where weapon upgrades are few and far between, so having a way to deal 205 damage nearly on command is pretty good, all things considered. And that's all without talking about Slingshot's enemy interactions, mind you. Thrown pellets aren't just for slashing and shooting. They have a few enemy-specific uses going for them too, that add some more depth to the Slingshot. Quick note, these enemy interactions don't apply for the Flamethrower and Scatterblaster. Firemen have a gas tank on their back, and a pellet targeting a fireman will hit this gas tank, instantly killing the fireman and awarding the player with the insta-kill bonus. However, this isn't always the case, as the pellet must have a clear trajectory to the gas tank in order for the pellet to target it. Otherwise, the pellet will just hit the fireman and deal the usual 205 damage. You'll have to throw the pellet and position yourself in a way that it has the opportunity to hit the gas tank. Just get out of there once you do, because the ensuing explosion can damage you too. The same interaction happens with freezers too. A pellet can reflect a mark's sniper shot, instantly killing the mark and awarding the player with the chargeback style bonus. If you have good reflexes, you can throw a pellet when a wizard is using its thunder spell to reflect the attack, dealing about half their health and damage and awarding the player with the countercast style bonus. Doing this will also give you the unlimited power achievement the first time you pull this off in a match. There's also some extremely complicated interactions with pellets for both the Bloxer's Captain and Bloxer's Vagabond fights, but that's for another video. Maybe. Lastly, you can reflect a single minigun shot from a contrapt with a thrown pellet, awarding the player with a Ricoshot style bonus. While a lot of these interactions are extremely precise on their timing, landing them can net you a huge style bonus, and potentially a difficult enemy taken care of too. Of course, not everyone's here for precision plays. If melting everything in front of you is your thing, the first upgrade to the Slingshot we're going over might be for you. For players who love watching the world burn, the Flamethrower turns the Slingshot into a crowd control menace. At the cost of 150 ticks, this upgrade greatly changes how you use the weapon, as the Slingshot's alt fire charges have been entirely removed, and in its place is a fuel tank. The Flamethrower now slowly drains this fuel tank whenever the main fire is used, and throwing a pellet has been replaced with ejecting a canister at the cost of 25% of your fuel tank. Using fuel from your fuel tank isn't permanent, as said fuel tank will naturally regenerate when not used, around 30 seconds to fully recharge from 0% to 100%. However, this can be sped up by having a high style rank, up to 50% faster with an extreme style rank. Any enemies within the range of the Flamethrower's main fire attack will take 44 damage per damage tick and be inflicted with a 20 damage fire infliction. Killing an enemy with the Flamethrower will award the player with the incinerated style bonus, which gives the player 10 more style points than the usual kill style bonus. An ejected canister is much more volatile than a thrown pellet, as they can't be chained and will explode on impact with its target, dealing 600 damage to anyone caught in the explosion, and applying a 30 fire infliction to them too. An inactive canister will also explode on its own after 4.4 seconds, even if it becomes active again. More on that later. Unlike throwing pellets, which more or less has 0 cooldown before you can throw another, ejecting a canister has a cooldown of 2.1 seconds before you can do it again. Lastly, you can slightly propel yourself in the air by using the Flamethrower's main fire in the air. All of this makes the Flamethrower a weapon that thrives in the thick of battle. You're constantly balancing fuel management with aggression, knowing when to spray fire for crowd control and when to hold back to let the tank refill. The primary fire chews through foes with ease, while canisters give you the burst damage needed to handle tougher enemies or extremely overwhelming hordes. It's a high commitment, high reward playstyle, trading the precision of the Slingshot for pure damage, and the ability to more or less set the pace of the fight, which I really like. If you're at this point in the video, I just want to say thanks for watching. If you like what you're seeing, feel free to leave a like on the video so more people can see it. If you want to know when more content drops, feel free to subscribe as well, as we have that Doomspire's guide coming soon. So, what if we turn the Slingshot into a shotgun? Enter the Scatterblaster, a 150 ticks upgrade to the Slingshot, which fundamentally changes how you use it. Instead of an alt fire and alt fire charges, the Scatterblaster's main fire can now be charged, but more on that later. The main fire is now a burst of 5 pellets forming a plus shape, with each of these pellets dealing 75 damage and lifesteal for 3 HP. The middle pellet can additionally be parried, and just like an ultra kill, punching the bullets makes them go faster, upgrading the middle pellet into a 96 damage explosion. If this projectile boosted middle pellet hits an enemy, it'll also award the player with a projectile boost style bonus. However, if the player hits themselves with this projectile, they'll take 25 damage. The Scatterblaster can also parry melee attacks specifically, although its timing is a little precise. Now back to its charge mechanic. With a Scatterblaster in possession, you'll notice a second meter on the bottom left of your screen that somewhat resembles the fuel tank from the Flamethrower. Well, when you charge the Scatterblaster, you'll actually drain its fuel tank in the process. However, this will regenerate over time too. The Scatterblaster can be charged up to 5 stages, with its pellet and projectile boost damage increasing, and its pellet spread decreasing for every stage charged up. After an attack, the Scatterblaster stage will go back to 0. Lastly, the player can boost themselves in the air by shooting at their feet with the Scatterblaster while airborne, going even higher if the shot was projectile boosted or charged. While this does make for a pretty good weapon, all things considered, if the Scatterblaster was just what I mentioned at this point, it would be pretty boring. But fortunately, there's a 5th stage you can charge it up to that's a game changer in the right hands. It's almost unfair calling Scatterblaster just a slingshot upgrade when its pulse shot basically makes you a walking grenade launcher. While yes, charging the Scatterblaster increases its pellet and projectile boost damage while decreasing its pellet spread, something different happens if you fully charge the Scatterblaster to stage 5, a technique that requires you to spend nearly your entire fuel tank, the pulse shot. Instead of 5 pellets, you'll fire a single projectile that randomly bounces, anywhere, occasionally targeting enemies, dealing 500 damage to them, as well as imbuing anything in its way that's compatible with plasma, before eventually homing in on the user if it hasn't exploded yet. Now, in this scenario, you have 2 options. Option 1 is to cut your losses and take the pulse shot, dealing 30 damage to yourself, with the pulse shot exploding in the process, dealing 500 damage to any enemies nearby. Now option 2 is what I like to call a skilled gamble, as you parry the projectile with your sword, making the pulse shot bounce faster, adding 300 extra damage to the projectile as well as 1 damage power too. What does damage power do exactly? Oh, it just makes the projectile deal more damage to you if it explodes in your face, up to 999 damage at 10 damage power. Now keep parrying the pulse shot and hope it explodes in an enemy's face instead of exploding in you. Welcome to the magic of Pulse Shot. The Pulse Shot is one of the riskiest, yet most satisfying mechanics in combat initiation. It forces you to make split-second decisions. Do you cut your losses with a 30 damage explosion and surf its knockback away from enemies? Or juggle the projectile in hopes of landing a devastating style-heavy finisher? It's chaotic, and when it miraculously pays off, nothing else in the game comes close to matching the raw spectacle. All in all, the Pulse Shot turns the Scatterblaster from a shotgun into a high-stakes loose cannon that blurs the line between self-destruction and absolute domination. Without it, Scatterblaster just wouldn't be the same. The Flamethrower thrives when paired with the right tools, so here's what accessories you'll want in your loadout. Yeah, that's right, there's an accessory section for each of the upgrades. We have 2 to go over in this section that turn the Flamethrower into the centerpiece of your build when equipped: Night Vision Goggles and Welding Mask. For 2 budget points, Night Vision Goggles noticeably buffs everything that has to do with the Slingshot branch. A 20% pellet damage increase, 2 extra charges on the Slingshot's alt fire, increasing the maximum amount to 8, a 10% Scatterblaster damage increase, and a 20% Flamethrower damage increase. However, this comes at a cost, with all other forms of damage taking a 10% hit in effectiveness. As Night Vision Goggles isn't just buffing your Flamethrower, but greatly buffing your Slingshot too, with an increased alt fire cap, your 2 budget points are well spent, as this accessory will benefit your Flamethrower build in any stage of the game. Simple as that. However, what about an accessory that specifically buffs a part of the Flamethrower that's annoying to deal with? Well, for 1 budget point, Welding Mask will give you an extra 25% Flamethrower capacity. While this doesn't seem like a lot, it lowers the canister eject fuel cost to only 20%, and greatly increases the window of time you can use the main fire before needing to recharge. You get a bunch of extra fuel to play around with, and when you're staring down something like a wizard or a contrapt, every bit of fuel counts to get rid of it quickly. As for obtaining these accessories, Night Vision Goggles is a mastery accessory, requiring 1000 kills from each branch of the Slingshot. Have fun! Meanwhile, Welding Mask just requires the Burning Sensation achievement, which is more or less a tutorial on how to get dopamine rushes with the main fire of the Flamethrower, requiring you to get a bunch of kills in a short time with the Flamethrower's primary fire. The Scatterblaster hits hard, but a loadout that plays to its strengths can make it hit even harder. So, experienced players watching this, I previously said that the pulse shot makes the Scatterblaster fun. Now with that in mind, guess what accessory I'm going to recommend to you first. Go big or go home. For 2 budget points, any weapons belonging to the paintball branch or the Scatterblaster are now set to burst fire, letting them fire 3 quick shots in succession instead of just 1. However, this comes at a cost. You'll suffer a 50% cooldown increase on these weapons, non-pulse Scatterblaster shots now deal 30% less damage, and your Scatterblaster pulse shots now, quote-unquote, actively seek your blood. If you're a skilled gambler, this hat is completely worth it because it'll put 2 more pulse shots into play when you fully charge a Scatterblaster. If you're not a skilled gambler, the Ramen Ball and Lampshade are right there, giving you 10% extra Scatterblaster damage and lowering the cooldown of your Scatterblaster by 10% as it's a primary weapon. As for the 3rd budget point, just go with anything you think fits with the rest of your loadout. Captain's Hat requires you to achieve an S rank or higher on Chaos Canyon with the Bloxer's modifier, which isn't too difficult once you're acclimated to how the game works. Bloxer's Captain is just a chargeback tutorial due to the new attack the boss gets. Learn how to reliably pull it off and get through the boss fight. Synergy is everything in combat initiation, and the Slingshot branch opens up some flashy combos when paired with the right weapons. For this video, we're going to be covering 1 weapon for each upgrade branch that can greatly elevate said Slingshot upgrade if used right. Those 2 weapons are Firebrand and Hammer. The only weapon you'll 100% need for a Flamethrower build outside of Flamethrower. Seriously, watch the background footage in this video. It's almost all Firebrand and Flamethrower. Someone in the comments should keep track of how many slash of ticks I've done in this video. As much as I like the katana for its faster swing speed, Firebrand is my sword upgrade of choice when using Flamethrower, and it all comes down to one simple thing: better canisters. The Slash of Ticks canister explosion when a Firebrand is used increases the damage dealt to 900, and instead of a 30 damage fire infliction, a 40 damage scalding infliction is applied. Scalding does more than just apply DOT damage however, as it also makes enemies take 30% more damage from all sources. Great for extremely tanky foes who aren't going down after the initial burst of 900 damage. When it comes to weapon synergy and combat initiation, few combinations feel both simple and destructive as Firebrand and Flamethrower working hand in hand, so long as you can get the timing down for Firebrand's delayed swing of course. Meanwhile, for Scatterblaster, we're making the most out of the plasma imbuement by setting up some walls with the hammer. Fragmentations caused by the pulse shot will imbue the wall parts with plasma, dealing even more damage. As you're probably going to be taking tons of recoil from the pulse shot explosions, you might as well make the most out of the pulse shot while it's in play with the best weapon to imbue with plasma. Okay, it's finally time to go over some more advanced pellet tech using other weapons. When I said that thrown pellets which hit the ground become inactive, I was only half telling the truth, as there are ways to revitalize an inactive pellet. The rocket launcher and its corresponding upgrades can revitalize pellets on hit, blasting them up in the air in the process, and is one of the most reliable ways to set up a 6-coin Ricoshot. The trowel and its corresponding upgrades can also revitalize pellets if a wall is built directly on them, also launching them up in the air in the process. Bombs can get targeted by pellets too, detonating them in the process, unless it's the explosive pinata, which will just charge the bomb up instead. Cannonballs can act as a substitute for pellets in a Ricoshot chain. Lastly, the combination of a sword and a paintball gun alongside the slingshot, you can perform what's known as a cherry top. Cherry topping is when you hit a slash of ticks, and while that pellet is still in the air, you toss a second pellet and shoot it with your paintball gun. This does a total of 865 damage at minimum, however, I hate Ricoshots, so I don't mess with that. Oh, also, there's a bunch of variations of cherry topping you can pull off. Again, I hate Ricoshots, so I didn't mess with that. Overall, there's a bunch of ways you can use the rest of your arsenal alongside a base slingshot. Gears can make or break a build. So let's talk about what gears can help out the slingshot branch when building around it. We have quite a few to go over in this video, so let's just get started. Bloxy Cola. One of the biggest downsides with Flamethrower is that you're losing out on lifesteal. However, with the Bloxy Cola, you get that benefit back. And with Flamethrower dealing huge amounts of damage with its main fire, there is no lack of dealing damage to be seen here. Overall, it's the best way to increase your survivability with the Flamethrower. Grappling Hook. The Grappling Hook can be used on an inactive pellet or canister to revitalize it. Yeah, besides that, it doesn't really synergize with the Slingshot branch. Allows you to somewhat fly with the Flamethrower so long as you have durability on the gear.
Which is Brew.
So, what's better than 3 plasma shots? Rapid firing 3 plasma shots, of course. Or canisters if you're running Flamethrower. Witch's Brew reduces your alt fire cooldowns the more you drink it, so as long as you can tolerate the visual effects, keep on spamming alt fire. And that just about covers everything notable you need to know about the Slingshot and its upgrades. From the precision and lifesteal of the Slingshot's base form, to the Flamethrower's amazing damage output, to the Scatterblaster and its extremely risky pulse shot, there's a branch of the weapon for just about anyone. Whether you want consistency, chaos, or spectacle, the Slingshot line proves why it's one of the most iconic branches of weapons in combat initiation. See ya.